Hello, I'm Amy.
Hello.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm joined by my lovely friend Josh Winning. He wrote this book that I've been shouting about from the hilltops, treetops, whatever you shout from. I've been doing that this Halloween. I'm not sure if you've noticed, Josh. Every recommendation video, I'm just like, please read this book. It's amazing. And as soon as I finished it, I did message Josh, so fair warning, and say, I hate you for what you did to one of the characters, but well done, amazing book. And Josh straight away went, "Is that a character, isn't it?" So you knew where my heart would be, and you ripped it out anyway.
I knew. I had to do it. It just had to happen.
It is a fantastic book. I think you're one of those authors who has, your books have just got better and better. And I can confirm I know what Josh's next book is going to be, and it is just like, it sounds excellent. So welcome. Thank you for coming on to talk about your incredible books, because we'll get into the others a little bit too, and not just this one. So do you want to introduce yourself, tell us about your books in general, and then heads will roll? Heads? Yes, will roll. I had a doubt then of what tense it was in.
Hands will roll?
Yeah, I mean,
legs will roll?
But and can we just admire this cover? I mean, I love the other cover as well, but
I'll show you the other one as well.
Yeah.
So that's the US cover, and this is the UK cover.
Oh, how did I get the US cover? I don't know.
I don't know. Special.
The publisher sent me it, but yeah, that's nice to know that I've got a little special one. Yeah. Okay, so do you want to tell us about yourself and the book?
Sure, yeah. I'm Josh Winning. I write horror fantasy books with sort of like a filmic cinematic bent. Can you say that? Very much inspired by, horror movies, 80s fantasy films. My first book was The Shadow Glass, which was sort of a love letter to Jim Henson and Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. My second book was Burn the Negative, which was sort of like a 90s horror slasher type story. And then Heads Will Roll is my sort of homage to Friday the 13th. It's about a sitcom star who gets cancelled for something that she's posted online. And so she takes herself off to a wellness retreat in the middle of nowhere in order to escape all technology. It's a technology-free digital retreat. And when she gets there, she starts to suspect that the other campers have also been cancelled for various reasons, and somebody wants to cancel them for good.
I love that blurb. That's so clever. I love the fact, because it is one of those problems of horror, isn't it? Okay, I want to get these adults to like a summer camp for kids, so how am I going to come up with that? I love the premise. I think it was so clever. And I liked finding out as you went through what each character's backstory was. I thought that was excellent. And I really liked the fact that nobody was safe. It was that real Game of Thrones feel of like anybody could be, I'm not going to say which character, but anybody could be like what happened very early in season 1 that could happen to them with the head. So yeah, I thought it was great. And I think the thing with you is you can tell your love of horror and your love of movies. It just shines through your writing. And I think when I read Burn the Negative, it struck me how cinematic it was. Like you said, like I think all of your stuff would make a great film. So do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like your background obviously was in film journalism. Is this something that you consciously do, like try and get as much of that in as you can, or does it just kind of come through organically?
Yeah, I think Scream was just a really defining moment in my sort of teenage years where that film was very much sort of like in love with horror films. The dialogue was full of references to great horror films. Characters were named after horror characters. And it's kind of, is that true? Are they named after horror characters? Maybe they're not.
Yeah, Loomis. Yeah,
Loomis, exactly. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I thought I was going crazy.
Right, I've got you.
Yeah. And I think that film, I loved it so much. I love the franchise so much. It continues to be a source of great joy and terror for me. Don't you ever kill off Gail Weathers. I will not be okay if you do.
I mean, I think I might actually have to have a genuine day of mourning if that happens. I was really upset by something that happened a couple of films back. I think it still brings a tear to my eye when I think about it. But isn't that amazing?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Horror gets a bad rep, doesn't it? Sometimes, like people go, "Oh, it's genre fiction. It can't make you feel stuff," but it definitely can. I mean, it definitely can. Like I cried, like sad tears. I'm terrified. I maybe felt a bit terrified, teary as well. So let's talk about that. How do you write scary books, Josh? I'd love to learn, because I always read my horror bits and think, is this scary? Like, I can't tell if it'd be scary to an external person because I wrote it. So how do you, in those really suspenseful scenes where I'm holding my breath and then I get jump scared or somebody dies, like how do you build that? What are the kind of tools that you use?
I think I can't write any scene, even, it could be a character-driven dialogue scene, it can be an action scene, it can be a scary scene. I can't write any of them until I have the setting, and I can see the action playing out. I can't, it really does kind of appear in my mind like I'm watching a scene from a film. And so if I'm writing, a scary suspense sort of chase scene, I need to know exactly where the character's going to be. I need to know, what kind of tools they have at their disposal, what the lighting is like, what the atmosphere feels like. What are they afraid of? How do they deal with that situation? And then I think that the thing that hopefully connects the reader to those moments of sort of total fear and terror is whatever that character is going through emotionally that isn't necessarily connected to what's happening like on screen on the page. So all of the kill scenes, if you want to call them that, in Heads Will Roll, they are all from that character's perspective, and they're kind of going through something emotionally that is only heightened by the horror of what they then go through during their final moments. So hopefully that's the way that I try to do it, is infuse the tension with emotion, and make you sort of like really feel for the character, because I don't think that anything is scary unless you really feel like you empathize with the character. You don't necessarily have to sort of like endorse what they've done, or how they feel or what they think, but if you can put yourself in their shoes, you've kind of, that's half the struggle. That's how you get the reader to invest, I think.
That's a really good point. I've not thought about it that way. So it's like actually writing a mechanically good scary scene that you've built, but also it's like it's the step before, isn't it? Then the underpinning, and I guess that's why we love stuff like Scream, and I know we did last summer so much, because you see the shocking kill at the beginning of Scream, but then it takes you right back to this teen film where you get to know the characters and realize what Sydney's been through. I don't think she would be the ultimate final girl that she had, would she, if she'd not had such a traumatic backstory, and like, in each film shown how she's overcome the things that happened to her. That's really good.
Well, that's why Scream for me is sort of unbeatable, because it is a slasher film, but it treats its characters and its situations with the sort of seriousness and the reverence of a thriller. They are fully fleshed out characters. They're funny. They are sometimes stupid, sometimes unlikable, mostly likable. They're flawed. They've got flaws. All of them, all the characters in the entire franchise, and they're all struggling with something. Even Dewey in the first film, I just rewatched the first Scream just the other day for Halloween, and Dewey is like struggling with the fact that nobody takes him seriously, which is such an endearing quality. And Gale, it's funny how like watching the first Scream again, and how like ruthless Gale Weathers is, and for all, you should really hate her, but actually you can't help admiring her, her dedication to her career, and also the fact that then when she meets this sort of galumphing deputy who no one takes serious, that does soften her a little bit. So I think that you just wouldn't care about any of them if that time wasn't spent with very cleverly and quickly helping you to understand who these people actually are.
I think Kevin Williamson just gets that, doesn't he? Like, Dawson's Creek isn't necessarily my genre of choice now, but when I was a teenager, it was like it was the thing, and you love those people, and you cried their eyes out when they lost someone. You were really there with them, and actually, I started rewatching it, and I think I don't enjoy stuff like that now as much as I did, but I still saw like the quality in it. I was just blown away. The Faculty, I think, though, is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
After Scream, I think The Faculty is just genius. The way it sets out those characters, and you meet them all, and then the apocalypse begins. starting with American high school teachers. I just think Kevin Williamson has really got it. Like he's like that elusive quality that you want to have, and it is all about characters for him, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. But I also think he's really great at telling a mystery, and he's good at conveying quite important information, but very quickly and elegantly. So, like going back to the first Scream, you find out about Sydney's backstory through little snippets of dialogue. So, like she's when she's called into the principal's office to be talked to by the authorities, one of the characters says, "Oh, she's the one whose mum or something," and you're like, "Oh, what's going on there then?" And you gradually start to figure out her backstory, and it's quite complicated. She accused the wrong guy, and he's in jail, and Gail thinks he's innocent. It's really quite a complex backstory, but you don't notice because it's sort of handled so elegantly and sparsely as well. It's not sort of like an info dump. You learn it throughout the pieces of the story.
That's always the endless challenge, I think, for me, because I keep saying to Kev, why do I write such complicated books? I think my new one is even more complicated than the Mina ones, and I felt like they were pretty complicated. And a lot of people say the Mina book's really easy to read, and I'm like, oh, I take that as a compliment because they were so hard to get that feel across, like where you can follow all this stuff that is being like, drip fed to you. Like I think Buffy does that really well too. Like you get to know the characters and the layers of them, and they can still do things to really shock you, but you understand why they've done them because you've spent, the showrunners have spent all that time doing the work. I love character stuff. I think that is one of the things about your writing. Like your characters are really memorable. Like The Shadow Glass, it's years since I read it, but I can still remember the main character, and I can still remember what his central kind of heart-wrenching stuff that was going on with his dad. Like I just remember it all because it's really memorable and well done. So all the stuff that's inspired you from Scream has definitely like come through your writing.
Well, also my dad also like really hammered it into me. My dad doesn't really write much. He writes a journal every day actually, but my dad has always said to me, you've got to care about the characters, and so I always have that in my mind, is why do we care about this character? Not even, and it doesn't necessarily mean you care for them in like a they're a good person kind of way. It's sort of caring enough to keep reading is maybe what he means, or what I took from that.
Yeah, like want to see what makes them tick. Why are they the way they are? How are they going to get any kind of comeuppance for the things they've done? And is horror comeuppance the right comeuppance? I quite like that question of slasher logic. I don't know whether you've read what's it called? I Was a Teenage Slasher, Stephen Graham Jones's latest.
Yes.
I'm nearly finished it, and it deals really well with that question, like how slasher logic develops and how a slasher becomes one. It's just so clever. I think that Stephen Graham Jones and your writing, I think personally I prefer your writing style. Don't tell Stephen Graham Jones.
Thanks.
I find yours much more digestible. I think his writing's quite dense, but he deals very much in detail, and I think you have this propulsion to your plots that I really like. But it kind of, that same love of horror comes across, I think, and that love of slasher and really confident knowledge. And some of it I didn't even, like when I first watched Scream, I was 13. I didn't know that Loomis was a reference to Halloween and to some other stuff, I think, as well. I think Loomis is a name.
Psycho.
Yeah.
There's a character in Psycho called Loomis.
Yeah. So I didn't get, like, Time of the Dreaded Sundown, I remember Sydney says at one point, and I only recently realised that that's a film reference too. It's great. Like you can watch Scream a million times, like I probably have at this point, and still get a new thing. Like that was the one I picked up last time I watched it. This is the power.
Well, it works even if you don't know the references, I think, because I similarly watched Scream when I was 15, 16, and I hadn't really seen any of them. So like when she's at the start talking about Jason and Friday the 13th, I think I was sort of like vaguely aware of them, but I'd never seen them. And I think that film is probably the reason that a lot of people, it become like a reference text. It's you can almost like look through the script and go, well, I haven't seen that one, I haven't seen that one, I haven't seen that one. And it's a way to become a horror fan. It's like a hand helping you into the genre.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting in pop culture references, isn't it? Because I sometimes worry that when I'm obscuring, like referencing obscure vampire films from the 80s, I'm like, is anybody going to read this and get it? And actually, the amount of people, like, I throw in the odd Buffy reference that's just like a song from Buffy or something, and the amount of people that message me and say, I see what you did there.
Yeah,
But then I think
Transylvanian
hopefully
concubine. Remember you put
that's
that
the
in the
one.
first Mina?
That's
Yeah.
the one. Like, it's interesting. The diehard Buffy fans, like, you didn't name that song, but I know what you did there. But it's putting those references in and not in a way, because I have read books before that are littered with pop culture references that don't weave into the plot. It doesn't feel as effortless, and I think that you do it really well, and I aspire to do it like that as well. Hopefully I'll pull it off.
Thanks.
I like it because it gives a sense of time and place. I'm obsessed with that kind of thing, so I kind of think my characters are as well. I always write characters that are horror fans that are referencing this stuff and dressing up as these characters. I just want to dress up as horror characters all the time. That's it. I know we've got friends who do that. I don't care to get just greater. I aspire to kind of be like that. So let me check what else I wanted to write. Oh, that's another thing, kind of tangentially linked to the pop culture references. I think you deal with tropes in a really interesting way as well. Like, reminds me of Buffy and Scream, like leaning into some of them and then turning some of them on the head in a way that surprises you. I think you do that really well. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that conscious, or is that just pot seeped into you from all the stuff you've watched at this point?
I don't know how conscious I am of specific tropes. I know I've been asked in the past, sort of, what's your favorite trope? What's your least favorite trope? And when I try to think about that stuff, it just seems to completely leave my brain, and I can't actually think of anything. But when I'm writing, I think that I do think about. I think a trope is sort of like an opportunity, because it's a shorthand that everyone understands, everyone knows. About the so-called dumb blonde who runs up the stairs when she should be running out the front door. Everyone knows about the nerdy guy who can't get the girl. All of these tropes are very sort of like, what's the word? I can't think what the word is. They're just like traditional and recognizable, and they provide an opportunity for you to do something different, which I think is something that Buffy did magnificently. I think a lot of stuff in the 90s had a lot of fun spinning these tropes on their heads. So for me, as a gay writer, I'm always looking for a way to kind of I'm obsessed with gender flipping. I'm obsessed with queerifying. If there's a character who's often the boilerplate version of that character is male, I'm going to make them female, because why the hell shouldn't I? And that isn't necessarily representative of the world that I know. Is this entirely male society that is just a fiction. So I'm always looking to gender flip. I'm always looking for ways to put queer spins on certain tropes. I think sometimes you can get a little bit bound by some of the tropes. So there's the trope of the kill your gays, bury your gays, which Chuck Tingle just turned into a fantastic book. So you kind of, if you're worried about sort of getting too into what am I trying to say? If you're worried about sort of adhering to certain tropes but not others, I think it can become a bit restrictive, because you start to go, well, I actually can't tell a story now because certain things do have to happen in this book, and there are certain tropes that you do kind of have to adhere to. But I think there are ways to play around with them, and you can kind of pick and choose which ones work for you and which ones fit into sort of like the message that you're trying to capture, I guess. If that makes sense.
I think it does. Knowing them is useful, but also not realizing that it's a trope, but just being part of your subject knowledge is really helpful. Because I remember I got some interview questions, I think it was last year, sent in advance of a panel, and it said, what is your favorite horror trope? And I was like, I don't know any horror tropes. And then I googled what horror tropes are, and I was like, oh yeah, the masked killer that walks really slowly and drags the knife. Yeah, that's one of them. And I didn't really realize that all these things are just part of the fabric of what I love and what I use in my own writing. I didn't know that some of them were tropes, like the bad guy sticks his head through the door. I've kind of taken all of it without really knowing that was a trope. So I think it's just good to
that
know
actually did happen
better.
with Heads Will Roll. I was like, I want to have like an epic chase scene for this character, but I just don't think I can do it in just one chapter. And it didn't feel right for that character to only do it in one chapter, because that didn't feel like the epic Sarah Michelle Gellar, I Know What You Did Last Summer chase scene. I wanted it to be bigger than one chapter. And my boyfriend, who is also a writer, said, well, why don't you have it over a couple of chapters? And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that completely turns it into a book version of that trope. And it was one of the most it's the sequence I'm most proud of in Heads Will Roll, and it's the most fun I think I've had writing maybe ever. So it can be fun to lean into those tropes, but maybe make them your own.
Yeah, I'm going to talk in code here. I was worried about that because I didn't want that as a reader. It didn't feel like it would be satisfying. And then when I turned the page and I saw what the next chapter's called, I was like, yes, this is what I wanted. I was kind of cheering. So, but it's that, isn't it? Like trusting yourself and your judgment. And you knew that wasn't quite right, but also then having trusted voices. Like we were talking about this before we came on live, like having trusted writer friends, or even like my husband isn't a writer, but he has read enough of my stuff and watched enough horror films to know what I'm talking about. So we bounce stuff all the time. And he just really interrogates everything I do. And like, this is why I think a lot of my plots hopefully are watertight, because he's gone, well, that person, what they just did and said makes no sense. And I'm like, oh man, you're so annoying because you've spotted that. But yes, I do need to fix it now. So you need that. Like writing a book definitely isn't, people think being an author is really solitary, and it is predominantly, but you do need a sounding board and other people who know what you're talking about.
Completely. Like, you do not want to read my first drafts. You do not want to read my third drafts. There are so many people who help you sort of craft the story, because at the end of the day, you are only one person. And I'm sure that there are some genius writers out there who just, lay stuff down and it's perfect, or they're able to self-edit in a way that is actually results in something fantastic. I'm sure that does happen. But for me, it takes a village. It really does. There are so many people who help you to fulfill what you're trying to do, but maybe you can't quite get there because you're just so close to it that you can't see where maybe it's too fast-paced here, or you need a bit of breathing room over here, or, well, why is that character actually doing that? And because you've been thinking about this for months, but it's not actually on the page,
I think
which is something that is good. Beta readers are great for saying what's on, it's not on the page. It's like, oh shit, I didn't even realize.
Yeah, I just thought it was because it's in my head, and the page is like the representation of my head. I'm so with you. I'm like interrupting you as I'm saying it. Sorry.
It's fine.
But I think that slashes and horror are quite delicate organisms. Like I think some genres are probably a bit more like you can get away with in a romance if somebody says a flippant thing, like it might not have a deadly consequence. But in horror, like we're dealing with life and death here, aren't we? That if somebody says something that doesn't tie in with your overarching trajectory for that character, like you can really, if you miss something or if you say something, it's the clues and red herrings that get me every time. I'm agonizing over how much do I want to reveal at this point without completely showing my hand here. I agonize over wording, and I agonize the way that my next book is told is very like kind of intentionally holding some stuff back from the reader, but I don't want it to be in a way that's annoying. So it's really, I think
that
horror,
balance is so tricky.
Yeah, it is. And you're just always adding a little bit here, take a little bit there. And like you said with Scream, if you can do it really concisely and subtly and organically, like that scene where Sydney's in the toilet and two girls are talking about her, and you hear her whole life story just being brutally rehashed as teenagers would do.
Yeah.
And it tells you so much about her character, like how she reacts to it. It's just genius.
Yeah.
So let me see. We've talked about tropes. Oh, that was the other thing. Mixed media. I love the way you use mixed media in your books. I think it really adds to the plot. And like pop culture references, it can be a thing that feels like an add-on, that somebody's just stuck something in there that doesn't add to it. But yours every time feels organic, like absolutely necessary, needed. So how do you choose what mixed media you put in? What makes you decide to do it at all?
I think that initially I just really loved the way that Paul Tremblay did it in A Head Full of Ghosts, because I thought he does like a blogger who's watching horror films, I think, or horror series. Oh, I was a blogger talking about the series, And I thought that he captured that voice so brilliantly and so convincingly, and it added so much to our understanding of this world that we're in while we're reading the book, that it just seemed like a really fun challenge. And I also felt like my past work as a journalist meant that I had written so many different types of things. You know, I've written short film reviews that are like 100 words, which is just tiny. I've written longer film reviews. I've written first person interviews. I've written articles. And in the past, I've written sort of like script pages and stuff. And I just thought I've got all this, these types of writing that I really enjoy doing. Wouldn't it be fun if I could sort of mash that all together into a book? And with The Shadow Glass was the first book that I did that with. And for me, that book, it was the found documents and stuff were sort of integral to that book, because there's so much world building necessary in the fantasy genre, and specifically in that story, that it just wouldn't have worked if you tried to cram all of that exposition and all of that world building into the actual narrative itself within the chapters. I think that it would have become so weighed down, and it would have sort of dragged the pace and would have been quite annoying, I think. So the found documents became like a fun way to info dump, essentially. And I think with Heads Will Roll, there are fewer found documents because, for me, thematically, it felt like the characters are cut off from the internet, they're cut off from the world, so they don't actually have all of this information at their fingertips. So I wanted to have fewer anyway, and the ones that I do have, they really had to be relevant and sort of play into the scenario in different ways. So there's a short thing about the benefits of getting out into the wilderness and how they're supposed to be really good for you. There's a thing about how getting rid of your phones is actually like a great thing to do for all these 5 reasons. So kind of playing into like wellness tropes, I guess, but with like a dark edge to them, because you're in a horror book. So if you're reading about the benefits of the wilderness while you're in a horror book, hopefully it feels kind of funny. I'm taking the piss a little bit. So yeah, it's just like a fun thing to, it's fun to play around with, but I do think they have to be relevant. If they're just plonked in there for no reason, you just skip over them, and they need to be unskippable.
It's like anything in a book. I think if you can take it out and the book can cope without it, then what's it doing there?
Yeah.
Completely. Like I think Horror Store, I'm assuming you've probably read by Graydon Hendricks. He does that so well, because you're like, why on earth is this essentially an IKEA catalogue that I'm holding? And the first thing you're reading about is just a wardrobe or a chair. And you're like, this is weird, because it's not necessary for the plot. But as it goes on, you start to realise why he's done that. And it's really clever, and it looks great on the page. And it serves a real purpose. I think that not that many people do mixed media, because I think it is easy to get wrong. But when it's done well, like in episode 13, have you read that by Craig DeLuey? I think you'd really like it.
No, I haven't read that yet. Yeah.
Do you know what? They're ghost hunters, and they go to this reputedly really, really haunted house to make their ghost hunting show. So you read things like information about characters. So you'll read their little bio on the page, and then you'll meet them actually in a scene, and you see things like the pre-production where they're just chatting in the car, but somebody's filming for B-roll. And I think the whole thing is mixed media. I don't think there's any narrative in there, as far as I remember. So his challenge is to try and figure out how to tell a cohesive narrative just through mixed media. And it's really good. And the audio is full cast, so it's amazing as well. That would be my top horror tip for you to take away. And it's good, isn't it, to read stuff that's great that you do. You can kind of learn a lot from other people's stuff, can't you? Like there's like one little nugget, I think, in every, particularly horror at the moment. I'm having a real horror moment again. I go through patches of like not ever falling out of love with horror, but not being as obsessed. And now I'm just reading back-to-back adult horror novels.
Nice.
And every one I learned something from. Like Paul Tremblay's horror movie was a recent one that I absolutely loved, and it's made me want to read all of them, but I'm scared because his all sounds so sad. Like you read the back of a lot of them, it's like, a man's just lost his wife, but everything's fine. And you're like, no, actually, I don't like sad horror, which is why I think I love yours so much. horror's never super happy in that people are dying and that's sad objectively, but Scream feels like a happy film to me. And I know it did
Totally.
last summer. Makes me feel
Fun.
really joyful and contented and fun. And that's the horror that I think you and I both lean into to read and write. We want it to be fun. And I don't want people to feel sad because I don't like feeling sad. And I know lots of people read books to feel sad, but I don't. I just want to feel like the murder and the bit of romance.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm happy with that. Okay, so I want to talk to you because I interviewed you a couple of years ago for the Shadow Glass. I want to talk to you about your writing approach because then I know we talked about it, but have things ever changed for you with writing, or do you still go about writing a book in the way that you always have?
I don't think it's changed. I think that probably I've read a lot more about various approaches to writing. So I've read The Science of Storytelling by Will Storr. I've read Story Genius by somebody Lisa Cron, and all the other obvious ones that everyone loves, like the Stephen King one and the John Woods one, and John York. And I think that I find them all fascinating, and I do try to implement a lot of their stuff. But generally, I feel like it all just sort of goes into the meat grinder in my brain, and I don't fastidiously stick to one method from any of them. I sort of end up doing a bit of an amalgamation of all of them, as well as my own sort of like random things that I do. But I mean, generally, I really try to outline. I need to know. I'm structure obsessed, so I need to know my, my midpoint. I need to know my inciting incident. I need to know my all is lost moment. I need to get like a general feeling of those quite early on, just so that I know I've got that blueprint to work around. And then I sort of think about the character. Who's the main character? What is their problem? What's your problem? What's their flaw, or like their perceived flaw? What's the thing about them that is stopping them from sort of evolving as a person? And how can the story force them to, essentially, which is the Will Storr kind of approach. And then I do try to outline. So I do like a chapter by chapter outline, but I don't necessarily do that for the entire book because it's just too overwhelming. So often I will plan the first act and I'll get happy with that plan, and then I'll write it. And then I'll see, right, okay, where have I gone wrong? What might I change? And I might do some editing, and then I'll plan the next act. And I kind of do a bit of hopping back and forth, because for me, it really is like, as I need the safety blanket of the blueprint, mixed metaphor, but
I get you.
But I also need the suck it and see. So start writing and see what you actually feel like is happening here and what is actually interesting. So it's all sort of a bit 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, but I do generally get a book by the end of it. So.
I'm exactly the same as you. I try to plot, but I can't see it all. And I asked CJ Tudor about this recently, and she says that she can't plot because she can't see the book until she's in it and she's writing it. So I think she has an idea of where she's going. But if you said, right, sit down with this 12 point, 15 point, however many point, she just wouldn't know. And I have that problem too. I look at Save the Cat and go, I don't know. I don't know what midpoint is. Like, you're asking me, and I haven't got into this world and these characters yet. So I always do a bit of back and forth. I plan so far until the point that I can't see. It's like you're a fortune teller and I can't see that bit of the book. I have to start writing. And like you said, I'm blocked. And I need to write as the character for a little bit. Usually I write in the first person, or I need to write about them in the third person. And then I can do it. Then I can plot because I know who they are and I know what they would do and the mistakes they would make and the stuff they would get right. So yeah, I definitely
do you also do things like, what films does my character like? What music do they listen to? All that kind of stuff. Yeah. I find that useful, but frustrating if I can't find quite the right pop culture reference for them. Sometimes I'm like, no, they don't really love The Craft. There's something else, but I can't quite get it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had a character so my one coming out next year has 2 main characters, and they're fairly balanced in terms of, like, you would think they were both the main character. You wouldn't be able to choose, I don't think. And one of them, people were responding to a lot more, and I was really annoyed because I was like, yeah, I do love this character, but I love this one too. Why are people not getting this character? And I did realize I'd not included what they were interested in and made them tick. Like, so I'd got the kind of flaws, but I'd not dug deep enough into the flaws, and also I didn't know what they were interested in. So in any downtime, I was like, what's this character going to do for the next hour when they're just waiting for something to happen? And as soon as I figured out what music they listened to, what books they read, what
Podcasts.
they would, it just all, like, I think they came to life for other people and for me a bit better. But not everybody does that. I know that, like, some books you read and you don't know what the character's interested in. It's not needed, but I need that when I'm writing. I think that's a whole. I think it's a big part of my personality, like this room behind me. So I need. I don't
understand people in real life who don't sort of define themselves through media that they love. You know, it's sort of it doesn't. They've obviously got other things that are more important, and that's fine.
I mean, it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, but it's like, what do you love? What do you watch? What do you listen to? What do you read? You know, and if they don't do those things, I'm like, oh, I don't. What else is there? You know, I don't understand what else there is.
What can we talk about if you don't do this? Find that it's interesting.
I think it's a me problem. But,
no, it's I have the same problem because now I'm finding out I meet a lot of people through my son, and so I meet their parents and, you know, his friends' parents and stuff, and I do just want to know what films they watch and what books they read and what music they listen to, and I'm not going to judge accordingly. You know, like if somebody's into rom-coms and all they read is romance, I still feel like we've got commonality because you've got something that you love and you're obsessed with. If people haven't got,
that person was in a great horror film, you know.
This is it. I can probably still tease some Stephen King reference out of what they just said. So it's fine. But if I explain that I spend all my money buying the Stephen King Ultimate Storytellers, and they go, why? I'm like, oh dear, is this not going to be a lasting friendship? Okay.
We'll talk about other things.
Josh. It's fine. Like you find your people as you get older, don't you? You find the people who, if they love the shorthand is, do you love Scream, Buffy, Stephen King? If so, we're fine. You know, like Kev tends to meet people and venture, do you like the Goonies? And then if they say yes, he's like, what about Back to the Future? And if the answer is yes, he's like, okay, we're going to be friends now. This is fine.
Mine is Labyrinth completely. If you don't love Labyrinth, what are we doing?
Let's go watch it. Let's put on our David Bowie wigs. I have got a like tiny little crystal ball that always makes me smile because I think of Labyrinth whenever I see it. It's only this big because I can't afford the really big. But I do. My aim is to be a wealthy enough author that I can buy a really big, obnoxious crystal ball to sit on my and practice twiddling it around my hand. Like David Bowie does. Doesn't everybody want to do that? Maybe that's the barometer of friendship. You say, have you ever either A, on a David Bowie or B, wanted to twiddle a crystal ball around your hands? And if they look at you and go, I don't know what you're talking about, then you can just walk away.
Yeah, lovely to meet you. Enjoy your life.
This isn't going to work out.
Yeah.
Oh, good. We're figuring out how to make friends. This is cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm not going to fall out with you over the next question, but I might adjust my expectations of you. Right. So I feel like you might have already answered your favorite horror movie, but I'm just going to check anyway. Favorite horror movie and novel, go.
Oh no, but this is the thing. Actually, is that I really struggle with favorites. I really don't have a favorite. I've got too many. I can't stick to one. I have to be like, no, these are my 100 favorites.
You can tell me like 10 if you want. Like what? Like horror films. Obviously, you've mentioned Scream a number of times. I'm assuming Scream is in your top.
I can't say Scream again because I'm gonna end up being ridiculed. But
some kind of Scream lovers watch this.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of recent ones because I don't want to be too like retro. So obviously I love all the retro stuff. Anything in the 90s, love it.
I don't watch
recent.
I do, you don't? But I don't. They don't. I do, but they don't get added to my favorite films are Fight Club. Fight Club is number one.
Oh yeah.
The Departed's high up there. Enchanted is also high up there, which is the one that people tend to go Enchanted. I'm like, yes,
that doesn't quite
the Amy Adams film. That is the one I mean. So yeah,
but that's very self-referential. So it kind of does fit.
Yeah, and she's a Disney princess stuck in the real world. I kind of relate to that. Like, I feel like that most of the time. I don't know what adulting is.
And you're called Amy, and she's called Amy.
Yeah, and people do say I look like her sometimes. I think I've probably aged out.
I could see that.
But Thanks, Josh. And also The Lost Boys is probably up there, but I
Love it.
don't know. I can't tell you the order of and Scream. So that's 5, I think, isn't it? I wouldn't be able to tell you the order of them. Probably if I could only watch one again, Fight Club, probably.
That's a great pick.
Just because I remember the first time I watched it and being like, what? Did he just say that? Like, is that actually what this film's been about the whole time? And I think I had a real life-changing moment when I watched it. And I still watch it now and go, oh my God, I so should have known that. Even when I was 14 or whatever, when I watched it, I should have seen all these. David Fincher essentially lays out for you what that film was about, and you don't listen.
It's so clever.
So yeah,
it's so
I
clever.
think it's genius.
Yeah.
So how about you? I've given you time to think now, Josh. Go on. I just gave you 5.
Okay, if I'm not doing horror exclusively, can I? So one of my absolute favorites is Thelma and Louise. Just love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Can I just say Brad Pitt in that film? Brad Pitt, if the whole film was just that character looking like that, I'd be okay for 2 hours.
Yeah. JD, bloody hell.
Yeah. I need to watch it again now. You're giving me the craving. It's been a while.
What else? Candyman. Love Candyman.
Yeah. Do you know what? When I read Burn the Negative, that was the like driving feel that I got, and I did immediately watch Candyman after reading it. Like, I think I watch Candyman probably nearly every year. I think the end of it is just exquisite. So the last 5 minutes, like, makes me really happy.
It's so good. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, that's a good shout. That should be on my list probably.
What else? I wish I was sitting downstairs with all my DVDs because I've got such a bad memory.
No, you've done well.
That's 2
I don't pull out. Yeah, I still whistle friends after that, so that's fine. I don't judge people based on films. I swear, I just move you up and down in my esteem, I think.
Yeah.
And the fact that you made me
I'll send you a picture of my DVD collection because that basically is it.
Yeah. I bet it's the same as mine. And the fact that we still have DVDs, I think, speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Like,
I've actually got really back into DVDs because I find streaming so overwhelming that I need to be able to look at a shelf and just go, I'm in the mood for that one.
Yeah. We've just recently got the DVD. The DVD player goes away for a while and it's come back out again because I was like, do I want to pay £4 to rent Lost Boys when I could just, because our garage is basically our storage, and I could just go in the garage and get the DVD. So we got the DVD player out again. The favorite DVDs came out. Like, I've got the Buffy, Scream, Lost Boys ones down here, ready for when I invariably need to watch them, like once a month or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Sorry, just throwing another one in there.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah. Also, well, fully enough, that's my first question in my quick fire round.
Okay.
You can say both if you choose, because I know what I'm asking you here. Jason or Freddy?
Teenage me, Jason. Now me, Freddy.
Okay, that's a good answer. I like that. I Know It Did Last Summer or Urban Legend?
Teenage me, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Adult me, Urban Legend, I think, has suddenly weirdly got the edge now.
Do you know what? It's so good. Like, when I think of Joshua Jackson and Pop Rocks and Coke, it's like quality cinema at its best. And like Tara Reid, I don't think I ever really appreciated Tara Reid until I rewatched that recently. And I was like, she does good death scene energy. Like, she's awesome.
She really does. And I love Alicia.
There's a line that, you know what plays down the phone on repeat when, I'm sure I'm not going to say it, but there's something plays on the phone on repeat when she's being killed. Like, I can just hear it in my head.
I love Reese the cop. And Alicia Witt, when every time the character says to her, "Are you all right?" she says, "No."
She is having a really, really bad
worst
time.
day ever.
She's gone to college just to kind of get over stuff that's happened, and like the universe won't let her. And Jared Leto,
also,
I mean, improve any film, add Jared Leto.
Denies he was in it, but yeah. The next time you watch Urban Legend, no, he denies that he made the Urban Legend.
What?
In interviews, he's like, I don't remember. No, I wasn't in that film. So okay, Jared.
I thought you meant you didn't remember. I was like, Josh,
no.
Sorry, what were you going to say? I just got confused for a second.
Next time you watch Urban Legend, I don't know if this is true, but I'm pretty sure it is. When Natalie has a voicemail from her mum, I swear it's just Alicia Witt doing like a grown-up person's voice, be it
Oh
playing her
my
own mum.
goodness. That is really funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
It
listen to
sounds
that.
just like her.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's not watched it, but I was because she's in. I'm assuming you've watched Longlegs.
Mm-hmm.
I was just waiting for her to be in it, and then when I realized what character she was, I was like, "Yay, Alicia Witt! Like back in horror. This is what we need."
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage is crazy.
Give us an
Like,
Urban Legend sequel with Alicia Witt because she's back in horror.
yeah, I mean, that would be. Can you imagine how iconic that would be? Like, how many years later, like, stuff's happening all over again? And I think the reveal in that film is really good too. Like,
Brilliant.
the reveal in I Know It Is Last Summer, like, yeah, it's, you know, it is what it is. But, like, that one, I was just like, what? Yes, that makes so much sense now. I think that was my first.
Don't you want to be an urban legend? All your friends are now. She's great.
Yeah. Yes. And in fact, oh no, I'm going to spoil it, but she's in another great film, the person we're talking about, that from the 90s, but I don't want to spoil who it is because in case people haven't. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've probably watched Urban Legend. If you haven't, go and do it. That's your homework. Your favorite Scream movie?
2.
Good choice. I feel like Scream 2 doesn't get the love it deserves. I think the killers are really good in that one. I think that it becomes even more self-referential. It's got Sarah Michelle Gellar in it, which kind of automatically makes it cooler. I do think I slightly prefer Scream 1, but Scream 2 is my second favorite by, like, you know, a smidge of this much.
It's got the best action scenes. I've been waiting for Scream, and they kind of actually did it a bit in the most recent one, Scream 6, where they actually had some really good action setup scenarios, which they had in Scream 2, which was the sound booth, amazing, and the cop car, amazing.
Yeah.
And then they didn't do it again. That kind of like high stakes action thing, they didn't do it again until the ladder scene in Scream 6, I think. It was all very much sort of like horror stalk and slash kill, but not like big, like, you know, just memorably tense and unique scenarios.
Yeah, I think that the recent 2 Scream films actually for me were really, really good. Like Scream 3 and 4 had their moments, but kind of, you know. I can remember certain bits that I loved about them, but the recent 2, I thought that the new cast, I'm really sad that the new cast aren't continuing because, you know, I think that they didn't get to finish their story, which is really sad.
Because they kept teasing their mom's going to turn up, and she hasn't turned up yet.
Yeah, and the connection to that other character that's from earlier in the franchise, I don't think had been fully utilized yet as well. Like, I think they were building up something with that probably that didn't get to happen. But yeah, sad.
Sometimes.
Again, go and watch them if you don't know what we're talking about. What is it? Okay, Grady Hendrix or Stephen Graham Jones?
Oh, Stephen Graham Jones has my slasher heart.
Yes.
You know, all of his slasher stuff has just been so good. I love that feeling of reading a book where he trusts you with the references and he plays around with the tropes. He plays around with recognizable situations from horror films that we all love. So it probably is Stephen Graham Jones, but I think Grady Hendrix, Sadie Hartman says this in her book 101 Books to Read Before You're Killed, or is that what it's called?
Yeah, Murdered, I think it might be.
Murdered, sorry. It's great. But she basically says that Grady Hendrix is responsible for the current horror boom because he made horror sort of accessible and fun in a way that it has like more of a inverted commas literary sort of territory as well. And I kind of agree with her. Like Grady Hendrix is like a fantastic like pop horror writer. Like he has substance, but he also loves the references. He knows that we know what you did last summer, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I love his stuff too, but also I've met Stephen Graham Jones and he was lovely, so I'm going to go with him.
Oh, you've met him? Have you just met with him?
I was at StokerCon and I met him very briefly and was an absolute gibbering wreck. So,
oh my God, that's amazing.
I got to say hi, kind of.
Yeah, that was me and Katrina Ward. I just basically blabbed about her books at her for a few minutes, and she was very gracious and lovely about it, and still posed her a picture of me and didn't run away afterwards. So Okay, this is slightly more a me question, just because I'm curious than a you question. But vampires, ghosts, witches, or werewolves?
Gonna go with witches.
Yeah.
I love that
mean,
you've got Charmed in your opening, in your intro, because Charmed for
yeah.
me, like I love Buffy, but I'll always root for the underdog. So I always loved Charmed more than Buffy, because Buffy was like objectively brilliant, whereas Charmed was always like trying to be good and sometimes was phenomenal, but mostly was sort of like just going on fumes a little bit sometimes. So
That's
for
exactly
me, it's witches.
That's the perfect description of Charmed. It doesn't know. I think Charmed doesn't know what it is, whereas Buffy is fully aware. Like Charmed doesn't know if it's a romance or action or sometimes horror. And I think when it's aware of what it's doing, like the character Cole, I think was a really good moment for Charmed. Like I think he did the angel thing really well. Of do we trust this guy? Do we not? Is he good or is he bad? I need to rewatch Charmed. Actually, I'm rewatching Alias currently, so I think I'm going to move on to Charmed next. I love Alias, and I never finished it. I had season 1 to 4 on box set, and for whatever reason, I maybe own season 5, but haven't cracked the case open.
Whoa, it's like a gift from the past.
I know. So I am like living my best late teen self, because that was when I watched Alias. I'm now watching season 5 20 years later.
Wow.
So
just a slow burn.
Yeah, just a bit. Charmed is the next one, and it's quite a big commitment, isn't it? Because it's long.
8 seasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it for my quick fire. We weren't necessarily quick, but it's fine. This always happens when you talk to authors. Like, I've got an answer, but let me give you the dissertation about why.
These are things I feel very passionately about, so let me talk, please.
Yeah, of course. This is why I ask people on here. I don't want a 5-minute interview. Like, that wouldn't get us anywhere, would it? But we are at the last question, and I don't know whether this is a question you can talk about. Feel free to say, I can't say. What are you working on now?
I'm working on 2 things. One of them is like a YA sort of mystery, quite 90s feeling, and that goes out on sub quite soon, so that's exciting. And then I've also got another book with Putnam, which I'll tell you, like it's got a cat in it, it's got a sunny location, and it's got quite a fun mystery. And that's, I'm not entirely sure when that's out, but I think it's 2026. So I've got a couple of things on the board right now.
That's very exciting. I like all of the things you just said. And I'll wait patiently for the next, I may have to beg you to read them a bit early or something. But
oh, absolutely. I'll happily I
love everything you're that rare breed, Josh, where I think you are the loveliest person as well as writing the scariest horror. And I think that horror authors quite often are really lovely. Like, you're genuinely really sweet. I bet when people ask what you write, they're like, expect you to write something really cozy, and you're like, I just wrote this book about chopping people's heads off.
Yeah. What you don't know is that we all go to bed at night and we peel off our faces.
Yep.
And our true self is exposed.
Yeah, it's just a slasher mask underneath here. Like,
exactly.
This is how I really look. Yeah. And that was more of a Macaulay Culkin than a ghost face. But you get the point. Yeah. Just had to get another pop culture reference in before we wrap this up. So thank you so much, Josh. As always, it's been lovely to chat to you. Please go and read Josh's books. Anybody watching this, I'm going to go and read all the things that Josh has just recommended. So thank you to destroying my bank balance once again.
Thanks,
so
Amy.
thank you for watching. Thank you, Josh. Please go and check this one out, everyone. And I'll see you in the next author interview. Bye.
Bye.